Who wants to make these? Me! Right, so if you've joined me on the channel today, you've seen either one of my testers on Facebook or on general social media, and you want to learn how to make these handy dandy cases. So you've got the handy dandy art case and the handy dandy pencil case. However, there is such diversity in these. Some testers made it into crochet hook case, this size one. One person made it into a iPad case to carry around. There is hints and tips all the way through the through this video of teaching you how to change it if you need to. If you're using the wrong type of foam, the foam stabilizer, which I talk about, is too thin, there is a hack, and I'm going to show you a tester's a few photos of what a tester did for me. So I'm just going to open these up so you can have a look. Yes, I have used the lovely Tula Pink fabric on these. So it's got 2 large slip pockets, which you can keep an A4 pad and a 13mm tablet if you wanted to in there, or iPad. Other brands are available. There is a zip pocket here, which I love, and you can store likes of so if I put my iPad in here, it means that I can store my electronic pen for my iPad, my Apple Pen, or other brands are available. I'm not sponsored. Right, okay, and then obviously you got a slip pocket here and some pen. Now, someone in my tester group asked me why there was a blank place here. You can add a second pocket if you wanted to, like a pen pocket here and here, or you can do one better. So my very first one that I did, because I've made quite a few of these now, I did an embroidery on this part of like a smiley face, because it was going to a really young child within our family, and she loved it, and she basically apparently draws a lot of smiley faces now because obviously it gives her inspiration. It's totally up to you. You can add an elastic pocket there if you wanted to add in a charger, or I don't know, but it's totally up to you what you want to do. You just got to remember to attach it to the second slip pocket that's in the instructions when we do this part here. Easy close. It's a full zip round and nice storage. Now this one hasn't got a handle, but one of my testers did do a handle on hers and it looked really nice. So yeah, it can have a handle. One tester even just only made this size, and she puts a colouring book inside it, which is a small colouring book for her youngest child, and she puts all his pens in, and he basically colours on travel when they go travelling. However, this is what I call a pencil case version. So these are elastics which are divided up, and they're on both sides, and they're for pens to go in and pencils. So for instance like that. I've made it this width because I know a lot of designer artist pencils are chunky and long to start off with when you buy them, obviously because I'm an artist myself. And then also these pockets here, so there's a pocket there and the zip pocket here. So the reason why I designed a double zip pocket is because sometimes I carry a few ink pens with me and I don't want them to be leaking everywhere, so I did one for ink pens, and then I got an emery board for sharpening my pencils, and I didn't want the dust, the residue to come off the emery board, so I designed that second pouch for that. So the whole point of the spine in the center is so it gives you an inch depth here. However, this one I super filled it out, and I'm not kidding, it was bulging, and it still zipped up and it still kept the shape. The whole point of using foam is the case will keep the shape. So in the demo, the sew along, I teach you both cases. However, I don't teach you everything on this case because it's repeated from this case. So for instance, I don't teach you how to like do the outside apart from the binding. I don't teach you how to actually do the zip tab here, but I teach you everything else, like how to make the double zip pocket and how to do the elastic and join everything together. I only teach one method of binding, so finishing off the binding I only teach one method because I personally hate the second method, and I explain that later on. But yeah, I hope you really enjoyed the sew along. The free pattern is in the Facebook group, and don't hesitate to ask any questions below. Happy sewing! Right guys, so today we're going to be making the free pattern. So to grab your free pattern, you'll need to go to R.j.A.f.MAKES pattern support group on Facebook. It's a free Facebook group, and if you go into the file section, in the file section you'll see this pattern. It's called the Handy Dandy Art Case Set. It's got two cases. One's an actual art case, which you can carry like your pads in and drawing stuff or writing stuff. You can use it for whatever really. And then the second case is actually for a little pencil case. Well, I say pencil case, it's still quite reasonably big, and basically you can hold anything you want. One tester did, and I'll put a picture up now, Emma the tester did some crochet hooks, and she made it a crochet hook case. So it's not just going to be a pencil case, but it's in the pattern as a pencil case. You can change the elastic dimensions of how wide they use sew to make the utensil that you're going to be putting in there fit. Okay, so it's quite a lengthy booklet, but there is no pattern template pieces. The thing that I'm going to point out is, mine's written on because I've been cutting out and stuff. There is bias binding on both of the cases. Both bias bindings are the same, so I've done a bias binding section of how to make bias binding. When it says to refer back to this, so for instance, so this is how to attach bias binding. So later on in the booklet, so for instance, let's go to the pencil case. Basically you're treating this like the art case, the previously art case, and then it says using using more of the bias binding attached in the same way. So you will need to refer back to the bias binding section, and that's these pages here. And then basically that's the same with the large case as well. I didn't want to repeat myself, so I actually just thought if I put it at the front of the pattern, then you can just revert back rather than doing two sections exactly the same. Okay, for both cases I'm using the same fabrics, and I'm using the same interfacing, and I'm using the same foam stabilizer. I want to touch base on the foam stabilizer and the interfacing in a minute. So in the pattern it says you need 3/4 main outer fabric, 1.5 meters of lining fabric, and then so on and so on, and 1 meter of contrast fabric. Me personally, I've used what I have in my stash. As this is a free pattern, I wanted it to be a leftover fabric from other projects, so I have mixed it all up. As long as I have got the quantity that I need for the actual cases, then it doesn't really matter. As long as you know, as long as you personally know what fabrics to use, you can go through your stash or you can go through your scrap box and pull out the larger pieces and use those. So I've gone for quilter's cotton, and my advice is to only use quilter's cotton fabric. So I've got 3 different pieces. Well, actually I've got 4 different pieces here, because obviously I didn't have enough of one. And then I've used G700 and F220 interfacing. G700 is a woven interfacing by Vaseline, and then I've used like scrap pieces of F220 white, which is Vaseline as well, which is a non-woven, and they're both a medium weight interfacing. So all you need is a medium weight interfacing. It tells you in the pattern which ones to interface. I'm not going to go into the booklet on how to interface and stuff like that. It just tells you which ones you need to interface. You will need to follow your manufacturer's instructions as well on the interface and on how to interface the fabric. Foam wise, I've gone for Vaseline fusible foam. So one side is fusible, it's got a glue base. Now the thing is with this foam, it's quite a thick foam, so it's about 4mm foam thick. Now I know a lot of you actually use thinner foam. If you're going to use thinner foam, don't double up the foam because you will struggle. What you can do is use a heavier interface. The point of the thicker foam is some of my testers were putting iPads inside the large one, and there isn't enough padding. There isn't enough padding when it comes to protecting that iPad. So one lady, now I'm going to put up a picture from one of my testers, actually decided to do a bit of investigation for me with headliner. Headliner is from the car manufacturer. It's like 2mm or 3mm thick. So on the picture you'll see like the tests, and it is individually labelled. If you are going to use headliner, my advice is to use one of those different options to actually pad it out a bit more. Okay, you're going to need your basic sewing tools. I'm going to not bring those out today. I'm just going to talk through what I'm using when I go along through the sew along. However, you will need these 2 items. You're going to need quilter's tape or wash away tape or wonder tape. It needs to be 1/4 inch thick, and it needs to have the double-sided stickiness, because I know sometimes you can get only single-sided stickiness. Then you've got white craft glue. You're going to need the white craft glue at some point, and I will identify that when it comes along in the actual pattern, when we're sewing the cases together. So those 2 are a big must, and then the rest of the tools are going to come naturally. And the only other thing that you're going to need is 5 zip pulls of number 5 zip pulls, and you're going to need 90 inches of number 5 zip. Now I've got 2 pieces because I didn't have one complete continuous 90 inches zip. This will make 5 zips. You do not cut the zip. I know one of my pieces is near enough long enough for the one zip. There is 2 large zips that go around the case, so you don't cut them until you're told to cut them down. Okay, and then the other thing you're going to need is, for the large art case, is 15.5 inches of 1 inch wide cotton webbing. That's just for the handle on the outside. It's optional, you don't need to use it. Right, so shall we get started? Okay, so I've gone and prepared my zips because it tells you in the section what you will need, what length zips you need to cut off. So I've got my large handy dandy case, which is a 13 inch zip and a 35 inch zip. Then I've got my small one, which is a 28-inch zip with two number 7-inch zips. They've all got one zip pull on each as well. So I'm just going to pop those to one side. I'm going to make the large case first and then move over to the small one. Okay, the large case, my advice is to cut everything out, interface what is needed to be interfaced, because some parts are not interfaced, like this piece, and then make sure you label up each piece. It's going to help you in the long run, and also means that you know which piece is for which. So I'm going to pop everything to a side apart from these pieces here. Okay, so when I very first made this case and designed this case, I ended up doing an embroidery on the one side. So this isn't the case that I did. However, I want to show you how it works. So I did an embroidery on this side, and it was a key feature because it's the front. But when you open this up, okay, when you open it up, the key feature side has to be on this side, which is the right hand side when the fabric is opened up. So I'm working with the main body pieces, the main outer body pieces, and if I had a key feature, I would need to put it on this side of the actual, when I'm putting them together, not this side, because that will be on the left hand side. Also, if you've got directional fabric, make sure when you put them together, they're both going in the same direction as well. Now, there is nothing stopping you having, for instance, the foxes sitting up towards the spine. This is the spine here, this part here where the handle is, that's the spine. There's nothing stopping you having like the panda bears sitting down this way rather than sitting down this way. Like I say, this is totally up to you. So you're going to get these and you're going to pop them right sides together, and we're going to pin down this edge here. Or clip, whichever one you feel happy with. Okay, matching up the edges, and then what I'm going to do now is go to my sewing machine, and I'm going to sew 1/4 inch away from this edge here, and that's 1/4 inch. I'm going to reverse my stitch at the start and at the end, and then the next thing I'm going to do is press this seam open. So I have my walking foot on my machine, size, because we're going to have a bit of bulk by the end of it, I've got a size 14 needle, a universal 14 needle. I'm using Janome Professional HD9 heavy duty machine, and I've got my walking foot on. In my sewing machine I have just got basic, because there is no stretch to this actual case, I've just got basic R.j.A.f., and that's 40 weight. Is it 40 weight? Yeah, 40 weight. Standard cotton. It's because it's just in the machine at the time. So we're sewing 1/4 inch away, and make sure you reverse your stitch at the start and at the end. Okay, so I've pressed that seam open. I've got my fusible foam, and I've got the fusible side facing up. That's the glue side. I'm going to pop the wrong side of the now sewn two main outer body pieces together onto the actual foam. Now my foam's just a tad bit bigger, I'm not really bothered about that at the moment. I'm going to go to my iron and give this a good press using the manufacturer's instructions of the foam, and press all of this into shape, into the foam, so it doesn't peel away. And then where it's overhanging, like here and here, the foam, I'm going to trim the foam back to the edge of the fabric. We are not trimming it back any further. We want the foam to be butt up against the edge of the fabric. Okay, so I've now got my fusible foam fused to the wrong side of the two main outer pieces that we've just sewn together. We're going to pop this to one side and move over to the inside of the art case. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is work on the lining of the handy dandy art case. That's the larger one. So you're going to grab your 13-inch zip. Make sure you got a zip pull on. You're going to grab your inside zip tabs, and you should have 4 of those. Okay, they're not interfaced. I've just put a bit of flatter on those. Oh, that one's a bit creased now, but I've just put a bit of flatter on those, which is a bit of a nicer starch. It's not going to be too starchy. So we're going to get one. Go for that one. We're going to pop this right side facing down onto the right side of the zip on the one short end and clip that into place. Then you're going to flip it over, get another one, so that's right side of the tab to the wrong side of the zip, match up the tab edges. Now my zip is overhanging because it isn't cut straight, doesn't matter. Okay, then we're going to do the same with this one. However, this one is open, so we're going to pop a clip in to close that zip. So basically it's right side of the tab down. I'm going to pop my clip right in the center where the zip coil is, and then I'm going to flip it over, get the other tab right side facing down and pop that over there. We're now going to use a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. So you're going to use 3/8 of an inch seam allowance sewn on both edges here. Then you'll see me on the next video clip open those up and then top stitch 1/8 of an inch away. I'm going to use a stitch length 2.4 on my sewing machine. Okay, so I've sewn those tabs on. Now if you've got a little bit of overhang on either side, just trim it back. I'm just going to do that. I've got a little bit of an overhang. And you want it to be a nice, neat edge. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is grab the inside zip pocket bottom pieces. Now the inside zip pocket bottom pieces, there is one interfaced and one non-interfaced. We're just going to pop the non-interfaced one to one side. We're going to run quilter's tape or washaway tape along one edge on the right hand side, on the right side of the fabric. Okay, I'm just going to fold this in half and just give that a bit of a crease here so I know that's my centre. And then I'm just going to find the centre of these. I'm just going to give that a friction pen a heat pen, disappears with heat. Mark. Open. I know I need a new one. It's because the zip is a tad bit longer than what is needed at the moment. So when we make this zip, we need to be able to have the zip pulling down when it's in the case. So the way I do that is make sure my zip pull is on the left hand side when I do this part here. I'm going to peel off this backing, and where that crease is for the centre, I'm going to match it up to that mark there. Just means that I've got equal amount of tab either side overhanging. I'm just going to stick that. I'm going to flip it over now. Now I know it's in the centre, and stick that perfectly neat. Okay. Then on the wrong side of the zip, we're going to run quilter's tape along this edge here. Okay. Now we're going to get the piece that we've called the lining. It's the one without the interfacing on. And we're going to peel off that backing, off that quilter's tape. Flip this right side facing to the right side of that, so it's the wrong side of the zip, and stick that into place. Matching up the edges. Okay. Now I'm going to go to my sewing machine and sew this together, this zip sandwich together. I'm going to use a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance because it's a number 5 zip. However, I am having to put my zipper foot on. As you probably saw in that video clip, I struggled getting the walking foot off. It's a brand new machine to me, so yeah. Right, so I've sewn those together, and now I'm going to go to my iron and just basically open this out and give this a really good press. Making sure the lining and the top part meet on this edge here. And then I'm going to go to my sewing machine and top stitch 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. Right, so I've just top stitched down the side 1/8 of an inch away. Now I did say you need the zip pull to be able to pull up when it's in the case. Let me just get the case. So this is the case. This is the case front. When you open it up and this zip is closed, the zip pulls at the top. I made a boo-boo. My zip pull ends up at the bottom. To be fair, it really doesn't matter because it's inside. Nothing's going to fall out as long as you do up the zip. So if you make this mistake, we're all human. And even I make these mistakes. Right, so just carrying on, pretending that mistake was never made. Your zip pull should really be there. Like I say, it doesn't really matter. Right, so you've got overhang of the tabs here. We're going to trim those back. Okay, and then we're going to run quilter's tape along this edge here of the actual zip tape and the tab, and that's on the right side. Okay, so you're going to grab your inside zip pocket slip pocket piece, and this is the top part of the slip pocket. One isn't interfaced and one is interfaced. I'm grabbing the one that's got the interfacing on to start off with. I'm going to peel off this backing tape. Wow, where's all this traffic coming from? Alright, okay, we're going to go right side facing down and match up the edges and stick the zip and that into place. Okay, we're going to flip this over and it should look something like that. So this part here that we have already sewn onto the zip should be way shorter than the one we've just stuck on. I'm going to run quilter's tape along that edge. And then we're going to peel off that backing. Grab the lining piece without no interfacing, and right side facing down, going to match up that. Okay, that's stuck into place. I'm now going to go to my sewing machine, 3/8 of an inch from the edge. I'm going to sew using a 2.4. Okay, so I've sewn that together. I've now pressed it open. I'm now going to top stitch 1/8 of an inch away from the edge here. Okay, so I've top stitched down there. So the next thing I'm going to do is flip this over, get this longer edge, this wider side, over to that side, matching up the edge. We're just going to lightly press that, and you should have a fold, a neat side. What I'm going to do now is just go and give this a really good press. Okay, so I have pressed this so it kind of actually is near enough the slip pocket there, and it is near enough the finished zip pocket because it's lined as well. However, to give it that nice sturdier crisp finish here, we're going to add some binding. So one thing I'm going to do first is go to my sewing machine, base stitch all these layers together. I'm going to do that 1/8 of an inch all the way around, and then what you'll see me at the machine do is pop this binding open, so that's right side down. So this is the binding which I've named in the pattern as the binding for the inner slip pockets. I've folded it in half, like so, then opened it up, then folded the two long edges into the centre, and that's all into the wrong side. Then we are going to, once I've base stitched all the way around, I'm going to pop this on this edge here, button up the edges, the folded edge to the raw edge of the binding, and then I'm going to sew on that crease all the way down. Okay, so I've sewn down that crease. I'm just going to finger press that. Then I'm going to flip this over, twist it round. Where the binding is naturally folding, I'm going to fold it. And then what I'm going to do is bring that over and clip it into place. I'm just going to do that all along, and it's given it a nice firmer edge from what it was previously. Now you don't have to do this binding on this particular slip pocket, it's optional, but I like the finish and I like that it's a bit stiffer. Okay, so I'm going to sew from this edge here where the zip is the right side facing up. I'm going to sew 1/8 of an inch away, so approximately here from this edge here. So that's 1/8 of an inch away, and I'm just going to go all the way across from one end to the other. Now that the theory is it's going to catch the binding on this side. If it doesn't, don't worry, I've got a plan for that. So meet you at the sewing machine. So I've sewn 1/8 of an inch away. Now mine has practically caught all the way across. However, this bit here is not caught, but I'm not really bothered because the pocket is actually a bit bigger than the actual inside lining, and I've done that specifically for a reason, because every one that I've made so far, this bit has not actually sewn. Now if you find that you haven't caught this part, don't unpick it, because it's adamant that you probably won't get a neat sewn line again. What you can do is get your white craft glue for fabric, white fabric glue, pop a bit underneath, let it go tacky, then stick this down and then put your iron on it. It sets it completely and it will not come undone. It just saves it looking messy on that side, but if you want to go unpick it, go ahead and unpick it. Right, so we're going to pop this to one side and move over to the next thing. Okay, so you're going to grab your inside lining piece. I've gone one step further. You're going to need to fuse interfacing onto the wrong side. I've used just F220. If you've got a directional fabric, make sure it's the right way. And then you need to work out that pocket that we've just made. You need to work out whether it's going to be on the left hand side or the right hand side. I did intentionally want mine on the left hand side, but the zip is not going the right way. So let me get this. So when you open up the case, this will be, the fabric will be going the right way. Now because my zip isn't opening up correct, if I put this on the left hand side, I'm now going to switch it over and put it on the right hand side, which means the zip is going to go the correct way. Now it's totally personal preference anyway which side you put this zip pocket on, but I personally like it on this side, but I'm going to pop it on this side for today, and then we'll put the pockets, the other second pocket system on this side. So the next thing I'm going to do is get this, make sure the wrong side of the pocket is to the right side of the lining. I'm going to match up these edges first and make sure I've got enough zip tab at top and bottom on it. I'm just going to clip that into place. Now before I go any further, I'm just going to flip this over and make sure it is actually no overhang of the zip pocket. I'll flip it back over and then pop some clips down there. I'm just going to bring my zip into the centre. Okay, and I'm just going to pop some clips on this end. Okay, and if you've got some overhang on these edges here of the slip pocket, don't worry about it. We'll deal with that in a minute. I've got a little bit of an overhang on here and a bit of overhang on here. So the next thing we're going to do is base stitch down this side, and down this side. We're not going to touch this side. And we're going to base stitch less than 1/4 of an inch away, but a bit more than 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. I'm going to use a stitch length number 4 on my sewing machine. Okay, so I've gone ahead and stitched this to the lining fabric, and then I've cut away the excess that was overhanging. Now I'm going to pop this to one side and move over to the next section. Okay, so you're going to grab the second inner slip pocket for the large case, and 14.5, I think it is, enough binding for the edge for the of the slip pocket. So I just basically cut some long strips and then basically I trimmed it down to the size of the slip pocket. You're going to get these, you're going to pop them wrong sides together, so both of these have got interfacing on, and we're going to pop those wrong sides together. I'm going to pop some clips down that edge. I'm going to clip down this edge here. Then I'm going to sew 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. Yes, it is raw. We're going to cover it up with the binding. I'm going to sew 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. And then I'm going to, like we did on the other slip pocket, attach this binding, sew down that edge, and then I'm going to fold it over and then top stitch on the binding. I'm going to speed up that process because it's virtually the same process as what we did on the other slip pocket with the zip. Okay, so I've top stitched across there, and here's a perfect example of what I was explaining before. It hasn't actually caught this bit here. So I'm just going to get a bit of white craft glue, which is designed for fabric. Pop a few small dots, not much. Let that go a bit tacky, and then close that down. And then I'm just going to go to my iron and give that a good press. And there you go, I've just pressed that and it's actually set into place. There's a few bubbles, but I'm not really bothered about that. Okay, there's a bit of an overhang here, so I'm just going to trim that back. So next thing I'm just going to quickly do is base stitch down the two sides here and across here to make sure it's one complete piece. So I've done all that, I've base stitched it. I'm just going to pop it to one side, and I'm going to get the third small inner slip pocket for the large case. Okay, we're going to go, and this is interfaced as well. We're going to get the two short ends match up together, wrong side to wrong side, and give that a good finger press. Okay, so I'm getting some binding here and just basically trimming it down to the length that I need. I'm going to go to my iron and fold that in half and give it a good press. Open it up, then fold the two long edges into the center and give that a good press. While I'm there, I'm going to give this a good press. And then at my sewing machine, I'm going to just base stitch 1/8 of an inch down here, and then I'm going to base stitch all the way around. And then on the folded edge, like I did here, I will add the binding on as per normal. So I'm going to speed up this footage now, so it's basically a faster process. So I've just done that and top stitched across the edge here, so it's caught the edge on the other side. I'm going to pop this one to one side next to the number 2. We're going to grab the 4th outer slip pocket, and one piece will not be interfaced and one piece will be interfaced. We're going to pop those wrong sides together. And because my foxes are pointing that way, I'm going to be doing this edge here. Okay. So I'm going to base stitch 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. Then I'm going to do all the way around. And then once again, you've guessed it, some more edge pocket binding. And then I'm going to pop that on this edge here, because when we come to the next part, we will be popping this pocket on top of this pocket. Okay, so I'm going to speed up the process again for just putting the binding on and sewing these together, and then I'll show you how to divide this pocket up if you want to for pens and stuff. Okay, so I've binded the edge there and it's caught on the wrong side. This piece of thread there. Gonna get the 3rd slip pocket and put the 4th slip pocket. So the 3rd slip pocket is right side facing up and the 4th slip pocket wrong side facing down. I'm gonna match up the raw edges on this, not the binding edges. And clip that into place. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is base stitch down these edges here and not touch this part here. Then afterwards I'm going to personally divide this up into 1 inch intervals so I can store pens inside. That's totally up to you, or you can just leave it as a pocket as it is. It's totally up to you. So I'm going to speed it up now, and you can divide it up as much as you want or as little as you want. It's totally up to you, but make sure you base stitch the free edges first. Okay, so one thing I didn't mention is if you are dividing up the pocket into sections, you need to reverse your stitches at the top where the binding is on each line. That's adamant because when you take a pen in and out, it means that it's going to have a bit of wear. So make sure you reverse your stitches at the start and at the start of each line. Doesn't really matter about this line here. So I'm going to speed it back up again and you can see me sew those. Okay, so the next thing, so I've gone ahead and stitched down those and I've given it a press so all those drawn lines disappear. So the next thing you're going to do is the second slip pocket. If it's going to be on, when you open up the case, if your second slip pocket is going to be on the left hand side, this will be down the bottom here, okay? So we need to put the binding on this edge here on the next step. Now if you have opted for the slip pocket to go on the side that the pattern actually says, so the binding's on there on this side, I have to flip this round. The binding needs to be on that edge. So you need to be adamant which side this slip pocket is going to go on in the case. But as my slip pocket is going on this side, because I made a big boo-boo on the zip pocket, I'm going to make sure I've got the binding on the correct size. So I'm going to go to my iron, press the binding as normal, but on the short end I'm going to fold it over by 1/2 inch and then refold it. Then at the sewing machine I'm going to attach it with the new folded edge on that binding part here, and then I'll meet you back here and then I'll show you how to attach it to the this second slip pocket. Okay, so I've done the binding down this edge and caught it on the wrong side. Now you're going to get the second slip pocket, pop this in that bottom hand corner. I'm going to pop some clips here along this edge and down this end, this side here. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is 1/8 of an inch away from this edge here, and you're going to reverse your stitch a few times here. Then you're going to base stitch down this edge here and base stitch across this edge. So I'm doing 1/8 of an inch away from this edge. I'm using a stitch length 2.4. Then I'll stop around about 1/8 of an inch away from this edge and then crank up my stitch width to a number 4 and then just sew down here and across here. We are not touching this part here. So I've gone ahead and stitched that, so it's actually a pocket now here. We're going to grab the lining, which we've got the slip pocket already attached to with the zip. Now if you followed the pattern, yours will be going on this side and this pocket will be down the bottom and this will be on that side, but it doesn't matter, we're all human. Right, so we're going to pop this one to this side here and we're going to clip it into place. Okay, so you probably guessed it by now, we're going to base stitch 1/4 of an inch away down those 3 sides. We're not going to touch this side here. And then when we get back to the table, there is a bit of overhang. I'm just going to trim that off and then I'll show you the next step. Okay, so I've gone ahead and done that. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to need your fabric craft glue, and you're going to need your main body piece. So if you've got directional fabric on your main body piece, you need to make sure it's pointing towards you, going the correct way towards you. We are going to flip this over, and then obviously my foxes will still be going the correct way for me. We are going to get this and pop this on top of here. Now if you're like me, you've got a bit of overhang here because I've cut it a bit wrong, that's fine. So what we're going to do is find the center, top and bottom of the lining first. We need to make this equal. So I'm just going to snip there and snip here. I'm going to pop that to one side. I'm just going to mark where my center is, where I've sewn the 2 centers together. This is adamant, so I'm just going to pop a pin in there and pin in this bit here. Okay. Okay. Now, the next thing we're going to do is get some craft glue. Now, if you want to use Bondaweb, go for it, but I have severe asthma, and Bondaweb, I can smell the glue and it gets on my chest, so I try my hardest to stay away from Bonda glue as much as I can. So I'm going to use craft glue. It's much cheaper than Bondaweb as well, and I'm going to this doesn't spread very well out of this bowl, but I'm going to squeeze and just, as you can see, I'm putting a generous amount, but I'm not overflowing the glue, and I'm spreading it on. Going to make sure it's stuck well where there is no slip pocket, and I'll show you why. It needs to be sticky. Okay, I'm just going to pop a bit more on because I'm not happy with okay, that should be enough. Make sure you still got this the right way, which I have. Okay, and make sure this is the right way before I stick it down, which it isn't. Turn it around. Going to match up the top center to that center. I'm just going to press that down there, and I'm going to do the same with this one as well. I'm going to press it down in that center, and then I'm just going to get my hands inside and smooth it down a bit, and then I'm going to pull slightly on the pockets and press that down, and same with this one. Don't worry about this, we're going to trim it back. If you've got the same problem as what I have, don't worry about it, we're going to trim it back. But first of all, we need to set that glue. So you're going to go to your iron, and you're going to have to get your iron inside and just give that a good hot press so the glue sets and it sticks this lining to the actual main outer. And then I'm going to go one step further. I'm going to go and base stitch 1/8 of an inch around this edge, and I'm going to do it from the lining edge pointing up towards myself. I'm going to go all the way around. Right, so I know a lot of you are asking why are we gluing it? Why are we using bond web? What I found is if I used sew-in foam, what happened was when I did the sew round and then I did the spine, the internal spine, I got wrinkled fabric here. I hated that. I liked a nice clean look. So there is nothing stopping you quilting it, but you would have to have quilted it before, and you couldn't have done all this slip pocket system here and here, so it would have just been a case without no pockets. So the glue was the only option I had, or bond web. Unfortunately, like I said, I can't use bond web as much as I like to. So the glue is the only option for me, and to stop the fabric looking unprofessional inside. So I'm just going to go to my iron, give this a really good press, heat set all this glue, and then I'll meet you back. Okay, so I've heat set that. I've removed the pins. Now I know I'm 1/4 of an inch out on each side, so I'm going to trim back that foam by 1/4 of an inch on both sides. So start off with this one first. Yep. What you need to make sure is, the reason why we find the centres of both pieces is to make sure that if you do have to cut anything off, it has to be equal amounts on both sides. That's adamant, because when we put the spine in and we put the zip all the way around, it means that it's not going to be a lopsided case. So I'm just going to trim this back. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is run clips all the way around. I'm going to pop that zip into the centre a bit and pop clips all the way around. And then I'm just going to flip this over and make sure it's not rolled up underneath. Okay, no, it's fine. Then I'm going to go and base stitch just under 1/4 of an inch away from the edge. I'm going to use a stitch length number 4, and I'm going to go all the way around and reverse my stitch at the start and at the end. So I've done that. So the next thing we need to do is flip this over. See that centre line there? You need to top stitch 1/4 inch away on both sides of it. Now we're slowly building up the spine area for the case. So it's 1/4 inch away from where the two fabrics join on both sides. And I'm going to use a top stitch of number 3 to number 4, depending on how I feel that it's going through my machine. Okay, I've gone ahead and done that, so it's 1/4 inch either side of that centre line. Now we're going to pop this to one side and we're going to move on to making the spine and the inner spine, the outer spine and the handle. And also curving the corners. Okay, so I've just gone ahead and added my own logo label. I'm just going to trim off any of the loose bits. And I've also added a label on the other side, which is the main outer side. Okay, so these 4 corners need rounding off. So you're going to have to measure up 1 inch and across 1 inch and mark. And you're going to have to do that for all four corners. So I'm just going to do that now. I'm using a friction pen. Just means that I can, if any of the pen marks are seen once I've trimmed it away, means that I can just basically pop the iron over it and it'll disappear. Okay, so now I've got those two marks in all 4 corners. You need to find something that's round. I'm going to use an ice hockey puck because it's round. And you're going to have to match from one mark to the other mark on the curve and draw around. Okay, so it should have a dominant draw line like I've got there. You need to do that for all 4 corners. Okay, and then you need to, where those corner curves are, you need to trim it back. And you need to do that for all 4. Okay, if you've got marks still, just go ahead and give that a press. I'll do that in a bit, and it will make the marks disappear. I'm going to pop this to one side and then move over to the spines and attaching the handle. Right, so you've got your 2 spines, which is your inner and your outer spine. Both of those have got interfacing on. And what we're going to do is bring the 2 long edges to the wrong side in the centre and give that a really good press, and we're going to do that for both of them. Okay, so I've gone ahead and pressed both of the long edges into the centre on both of those. We're going to pop one to one side. We're going to find the centre of both of these 2 short ends here. So I'm going to fold it in half and just snip into it slightly so I know where the centre is from the right side. Okay, so I've done that. Now we're going to flip this over and run quilter's tape or wash away tape, whatever you want to call it, on both of those long two edges. And that's on the wrong side. Okay. Now I have missed a step out. I'm going to show you. So I did add a step for people that haven't got confidence on when it comes to sandwiching the two spines together on each side of the actual body of the case. However, I've got confidence and I'm going to do the confident way. However, before you put the sticky wash away tape on, what you can do is top stitch 1/8 of an inch away from the edge on both sides on the one spine. Then you can add the quilter's tape on top. However, I'm actually missing this one step out, and I'm going to show you how I do this. It might be something, because what will happen is, and I will get the actual original case that I did. So what happens is, and I know a lot of my testers didn't like this, some testers didn't mind it, but I got like weird stitching. So the first row here is fine. That's the 1/8 of top stitching before we put the tape on. That's fine. But when I came to sew this spine on, and I was doing 1/8 of an inch away, it didn't actually match perfectly to that stitch line. So the plan was, and it did it perfectly here, but it didn't over here, and I personally didn't like it, and a lot of the other testers didn't like it. However, I have kept that step in because I know there's not going to be that many confident sewers that can do the top stitching all the way from one to the next. But like I say, I'm going to show you a trick of what I did, and to see that it can be possible. Right, so going to get the case, and once again we're going to pop some pins in where the center, where these two pieces of fabric match. We're going to pop a pin in the foam, top and bottom. It's just so we can identify where the center is. Okay. We got the true center? Nope. Right, so I got the true center now. I'm going to peel off this backing. And I'm going to match up the center half of this to that center. Now yes, these are longer than what they need to be. I've done that for a reason, so you can try and get it straight. Okay, and then we're going to match this center up with that pin, because obviously it's overhanging. I'm going to slightly stretch it a bit, which should give you a straight edge. Straight. I'm going to stick that into place. Okay, so I'm not going to do anything at the moment. What I do say is you can go ahead and top stitch 1/4 of an inch away. You can do that if you want to. I'm not going to do that at the moment. I'm going to flip this over, And then I'm going to get the other spine. I'm going to run quilter's tape along the back here. Okay. I'm going to find the centre top and the centre bottom of the two short sides. Okay, then I'm going to peel off the backing tape off both of those. Now we might have to reposition this, or the one in the centre on the other side. Match up that half and match up this half. I'm going to pull it slightly, just slightly press it down. Now this is my trick to make sure this edge matches up with this edge. I'm going to pop some pins going straight through. Like that. And then I'm just going to do the same on this side. These pins are not going to stay in. This is just so I can identify if the spines are perfectly straight. And when I top stitch, it means I'm going to be only top stitching in the correct places. So I'm going to flip that over, hold that straight, and I've just got one to adjust there, so I'm going to take that pin out, move that over just a little, and I'm close. Yeah, so that's perfectly fine. I'm going to take those death trap pins out now. Okay, so I'm going to top stitch 1/8 of an inch away. So the next thing we're going to do is work from the outer side. We're going to trim off the excess because that's going to mess around with the measurements on the next part. You're going to get the handle, and we're going to do a bit of measurements on the handle. Okay, so on the handle, on both of the two edges, two short sides, we need to run some quilter's tape. I'm going to do 2 strips on each side, and it needs to be approximately 3.5 inches worth of quilter's tape. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is peel off the backing of 2 of the tapes on the one side. You're going to match this edge of the webbing to that edge, and you're going to stick it on the spine like so. Then you're going to peel off this backing here and stick it to that end of the spine. Let's get rid of those. Here's the thread. Okay, so you should have a U shape in the centre like I've got there. So the next thing you're going to do is we'll start from this edge here. You're going to get your marking tool. Three and a quarter inches up, 1, 2, 3 and a quarter, and then we're just going to run a line across. Okay, I know this will disappear if I put the iron on it. I'm going to flip it round and do the same on this one. So that's 3 3/4, 3 1/2, 3 3/4. Okay, so what you're going to do now is go to your sewing machine, top stitch 1/8 of an inch away, up to that point there. You're going to drop your needle and pivot, and then you're going to sew across this bit here, and then pivot again at that point, and then sew 1/8 of an inch away. And the same on this one as well. The theory is, and I cannot help that you might see it not sewn correctly on this side of the spine, but the theory is if you stick to 1/8 of an inch, you should be going over the stitches that you made previously on this part here. So I'm going to jump on the sewing machine. I'm going to use stitch length 4 on my sewing machine, and I will reverse my stitches at the start and at the end. Okay, so that's done. What I did notice is tried my hardest, but it has double rowed here and here, but the majority is fine, so I'm happy with that. Right, so we're gonna pop this to one side and we're gonna work on the zip and get the zip attached. Right, I've got my really long zip, really long, and my main zip tab. I've pressed the 2 short ends into the wrong side, and then folded it over and pressed the 2 long edges 1/4 of an inch in, and then I've folded it over and given that a really good press. So we're going to run quilter's tape along those 2 folded edges on the wrong side. Okay, so I've done that. Get your zip, and obviously because you put your pull on, we need to know which way the zip pulls. So the zip pulls this way to open up, so we need to work on the end that is going to be the bit where it is closed once we've pulled the zip end all the way. So I'm just going to pull that about 3 or 4 inches. I'm going to peel off this backing, off both of those. Okay. Sticky. Right, okay, so I'm gonna pop this zip over and stick it round about 1/2 an inch in. So that's about 1/2 an inch in, and stick it into place. Then I'm going to fold this over and stick this into place. Okay, so the thing I'm going to do now is stitch all the way around 1/8 of an inch away, and reverse my stitch at the start and at the end, and then this means that the zip pull cannot come off now when the zip is attached to the case. Okay, so I've gone ahead and done that. So we need to work on these ends here and on the body. So grab the body. I'm going to open it up and we're going to work from the inside. You're going to need a few clips to start yourself off. Now, I personally like to have the zip closed to start off with. I'm going to work on this side first and then move over to that side. And then once I have done the first bit, then I will open the zip fully. Okay, so the first thing I need to do is fold this at a 90-degree angle. So you've got it like this. Okay, you're going to bring that down and you're going to pop it on to the spine edge here. And this is where you're going to need a clip. Keep it folded at a 90-degree angle. Now it is hit and miss, but you're going to get it. Just takes time. Okay, so it should be going at a 90-degree angle. I'm going to just pop a few more clips in it. One more here. Okay. Then I'm just going to start undoing the zip as I go along. Now, you're going to say the zip tape won't go around the corner. It will. Just going to have to persuade it. So we're just adding clips. Okay, so we're coming to a corner here. I'm going to undo the zip, and on the zip tape I'm just going to snip in 1/8 of an inch or every 1/4 of an inch. Okay, so I've got some snips in there. Then I'm just going to cut into that there. Okay. So I'm putting my finger on the zip here, the coil section, and pushing it slightly. And then I'm going to pop my clip in and do the same again. Open up the zip a bit more. I haven't snipped in enough because it's not naturally going round. So I'm just going to snip a bit more. But you don't want to go any further than 1/8. Gonna redo it again. There you go. Okay, so I've got that to go around that one corner. Then I'm just going to carry on clipping down this side, and then I'll meet you at that corner. Okay, so I've come to this corner here. I'm going to snip in to the tape again. I think that'll be enough. And then open up that a bit and go around that corner. Try your hardest to make sure there's no kinks in the zip tape. And then we're just going to clip up until this point here. So I'm just going to undo the zip now completely. Make sure that zip hole is inside the case. Just going to push it out a bit. Okay, so I've got to there. However, we need to flick, so about 1/8 of an inch away from this edge of the spine, we need to flick this so it twists, so the wrong side is seen here. I'm going to move this clip up now to there. Okay, so it should look something like that. Okay, now you're going to do the same here, so I'm going to bring that out at the moment. Okay, and then we're going to work on this edge here. So we're going to fold it at the start again at a 90-degree angle. It's a bit too much. Okay, and then you're going to pop that here. And pop a clip in. Like so, and then you're just going to keep clipping, and we're going to do the same process leading up to this point, up to that point. Okay, so you've got this bit here. You need to flick it under and pull it. About there. I'm going to pull it about there actually. Right, so I've actually gone about 1/4 of an inch, so by the time I sew over this it'll be 1/4 of an inch. Just means that you've got a bit of playing around. So starting off here, you're going to sew 1/4 of an inch away from the edge. Now normally we say 3/8 of an inch away from the edge when you're doing a number 5 zip. However, the theory is you need that bit of depth when the case is closed. So you're going to have to sew 1/4 of an inch. Now I start here and sew over the zip and reverse my stitch a few times. You're going to need a tailor's awl, it's adamant, to hold like the 90-degree angle, to hold the zip tape into place in the corners, and to hold it down here. So when we come to here, when we have got to sew up to here, I sew straight over across and carry on, and then go over that bit there as well, and then just carry on going all the way around. I am going to use a stitch length 2.4 because it means that I can go around the corners a bit more neater. When you get to the corners, you're going to have to push the zip coil out of the way, hold it down with your stiletto or your tailor's awl or your purple fang. Okay, but you'll see me do that on the speed footage of the sewing machine. Okay, so I've gone ahead and attached the zip, and I can do it up, poke that out and do it up all the way around. Okay, it's a nice fit. So what I'm going to do now is pop this to one side. It's not complete, and we are going to do the bias binding of both items at the same time, so I'm not repeating myself twice. So we're going to pop this to one side. Then we're going to go over to the making the pencil case. Now the pencil case is quite similar as it's stated in the instructions. So like we did with the two front outer pieces, you're going to sew those together, open it up, and then fuse it on to your fusible foam. Okay, then you're going to pop it to one side, and then we will start off from the inside lining, which is with the elastic and the double zip pocket. Okay, so I've gone and prepped the outer body pieces because it's exactly the same process as what the larger case is. So I've sewed the two pieces together, put some interfacing on them, and then I've fused it to fusible foam. I'm going to pop this to one side, and then we're going to make the double zip pocket pouches. Right, so I've done a little bit of prep on some of this, however I'm going to do, because it's doubling up on a few things, so I am going to be doing just one of each. Okay, so first of all, you've got your main outer pieces. Now my main outer pieces is one directional, so what I ended up doing was I actually divided the 11. So if you've got multi-directional fabric, stick to the 11 by 7 by 5. If you're like me, where you've got one directional fabric, you need to divide the 11, which I did, and then that gave me, then I basically added the seam allowance, which is 1/4 inch. So I did 5 3/4, and then 2 pieces I sew together in the opposite direction, so when the spine goes over that you won't see that join, but however the foxes are going the right way, and it'll be the same on this way as well. So the foxes will be standing up rather than one side standing up and one side upside down. Now I'll show you what actually happens is, so for instance this one here, I didn't actually divide the 11 up. So if you'll notice, my pandas are upside down on this side, on this bit here, but they're the right way up on this one. So if you have got multi-directional, go ahead, do the 11-inch high. Okay, so that being said, I've done both of those pieces and they're both interfaced, and as you can see I've pressed the seam open. So you'll need your pocket lining, there should be 4 pieces. And you'll need your 2 7-inch zips and your 8 pieces of fabric for your tabs. So we're going to just do the tabs as per like we did in the first bag, the first case with the large 13-inch zip. So you got 4 tabs. Obviously that one's not pressed, but I will press it. Personally sew over that, and then all I'm going to do is pop 1, do it this side, 1, right side facing down onto the zip. You get the other one right side facing to the wrong side of the zip. Sew across 1/4 inch this time. Then once you've sewn sewn it together, you're going to press it open and then top stitch it 1/8 inch. Now, so now I've sewed the tabs on. The tabs slightly overhang. I'm just going to trim them back. So they match the edge of the zip. Just means less bulk in the seam when you're come to do the corners of the pocket. Just do this one. Okay, so I'm just going to pop one to one side for a moment. And okay, so we're going to get one of the main outer pocket pieces, and you're going to run quilter's tape along both edges. Okay, then you're going to get the zip, first zip, peel off this backing off this one first. Now we're going to go with this side here. I'm going to pop it here, but however I want to find the centre, so we can get equal amount of tab each side. It's about the centre. Just going to fold that so we can find the centre as well. I should have done that earlier actually. That's it. So I know my centre is on this line here. And pop the two centres together and match up, and this is the right side to right side, so that's the right side of the zip to the right side of the fabric. I'm going to do the same with this side. Just going to fold that so I can find the centre. My advice is do it before you put the tape on. Fold the zip in half, find the centre of the other zip. My centre is going to be on that line. I'm going to make sure my zip pulls are in the same direction. Match up the centres and stick into place. Okay, so we're now going to run quilter's tape along this edge here on both of these two. Okay, so we're going to get two of the lining pieces. I'm going to peel off the backing off the first side, pop that right side facing to the wrong side of the zip, but it would be the right side of the fabric, match up this edge to this edge. And then do the same for the other edge and stick that down. Okay, so you got that one there. Do the same with this side. Okay, so you're going to go to your sewing machine now. I'm going to swap over to my zipper foot, and I'm going to stitch 3/8 of an inch on both of those. Then I'm going to press the seam open on both of them and then top stitch it, and you'll see me top stitch, but in between sewing down this side and then opening it up, I've given both sides a good press. So I've gone ahead and done that. So on the lining side is the lining. Yes, there is a gap, that's fine. That's all explained later on. I'm going to trim back these tabs so they are cut back and out of the way. Right, and then we are now going to do the other piece and the other lining. So this time we're going to run quilter's tape along these two edges of the zip. So this is right side. So I'm going to run tape on this side. And I'm going to run tape along this edge. Okay, so I'm going to peel off the backing tape off both of these. Then I'm going to get the main outer piece and first stick it to one side. So I'm just going to go for this side first. And then I'm going to pull it over, and what will happen is this side will lift up, and I'm going to stick that one into place. Now I personally find going straight to my sewing machine and just base stitching along these edges here before I attach the lining. So I'm just going to go and do that now. So now I've gone and base stitched those. I'm going to flip this over. Make sure my lining's in the middle. Yeah, there will be a kink. Just make sure it's in the middle and out of the way. You're going to run quilter's tape along these two edges here. Then you're going to peel off the backing of both of them. And then you're going to pop your lining right side facing down on the lining. Match it up the sides and the edges. Stick into place on both sides. Okay, so you're now going to sew these. Make sure you reverse your stitches at the start and at the end. And then I'll meet you back at the table after I've sewn these into place. Okay, so I've sewn all that. Now you're probably wondering, how am I going to top stitch the other sides of the zip when it's the right side facing out? It's easy. So the first thing you're going to do is quickly go to your iron. I've left the hole on the sides big enough so you can fit a standard iron through. So first of all, you're going to open up on one zip the two linings. You're going to pop that flat on your ironing board, pull it slightly this side, and then you're just going to get your iron in there and just give it a light press. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then repeat the same for this side. And then I'm going to take you over to the sewing machine, open up the zip that's closest towards your body. It's just going to give you a bit of help. And then basically you're going to get your zipper foot, keep your zipper foot on and top stitch, and you're going to have to just keep sewing. And then what will happen is, because you need this moving out of the way, this bit that you've top stitched will start lifting up, which means that you can get to the very end here. Now you'll see that on the video footage when I've pressed this open. Okay, so we've done and pressed those open and sewed those top stitch both sides. I've gone ahead and swapped over to my walking foot again. So I'm just going to turn it the right way out just to give it a good look, to make sure I've caught all the seams. which is fine. Okay, so me personally, I like to open both zips into the centre, so I'm just going to do that now. Okay, so you're going to pull both of the lining pieces out like so. So you've got one long strip. Okay, I want to do this at the moment. We're going to help that. You're going to get some clips. First of all, I like to match up if I've done the centre bit with the one directional fabric. I like to just do those first. So I'm matching up the centres. Okay, then what I end up doing is pushing this bit here towards the lining. Now it is quite bulky, but it will work. One of my testers actually made the zip 6.5 inches rather than 7 inches. It's personal choice. She wanted the tabs a bit longer so they weren't in the seams as much. Like I say, this is a free pattern. You can change it to do whatever you want it to do. Like in a few steps time, I'm going to show you what one tester did. She made it into a crochet hook case, and she used wider elastic because obviously the crochet hooks, it did look really pretty with the wider elastic. So yeah, it's totally up to you to have a play. It's there for you to make your own version. Okay, so I'm just clipping down this one side first. Okay, I'm going to twist that round because I find it better working from this side. Then I'm just going to carry on doing this side. Okay, so I'm going to sew 1/4 inch away from the edge, reversing my stitch at the start and at the end on both sides, and I'm just going to take it nice and slow over the tabs. You might want to use something called a bulky seam aid. I possibly might not need to use it, but a bulky seam aid is where you can go over the jumps. So for instance, if my presser foot was coming this way, that's quite a big jump and you might find stitches jump, so you can pop this in the front to level it off and it'll sew. Make sure your needle doesn't go any further than where that cutout is, and it will stop it from jumping stitches, and it means it can go over that bulky area. Okay, so I'm going to go over to my sewing machine, use a stitch length 2.4, and I'm 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, so I've sewn across those. As you saw, I had to go over a certain area, so I had to go over this area. I found that it wasn't 1/4 inch seam allowance. I went slightly under 1/4 inch seam allowance, and it would have mean once I turned this the right side facing out, it would have been a bit off looking. So I went back and did the 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now, you need a pair of scissors and you need to trim back this area where the tabs are. Now you're going to trim it back so it's like just under 1/8 of an inch away from where your sewn line is. I'm going to do the same for these ones as well. Right, okay, so you're going to go through one of the ends, and we are leaving those open. These two ends here, we are leaving those open. You're going to go through one of the ends and open up that zip. You're just going to get your hand right in, open up that other zip, and you're going to pull that lining through. So it is like this. Now you're going to get your chopstick or something a bit woodeny but poking it, not too sharp. And you're going to get it up into those tab areas and push it out. Now I find closing the zipper tab, getting the zip up inside. Give that a good push. Okay, and do the same for this one as well. Close that zip a bit and get the chopstick or turning tool or whatever and push. Open those back up again. Okay, so you're going to push the linings inside. Close that up. Do the same with this one. That out a bit more. Okay, so you're going to go to your iron and give this a really good press. Once you've pressed it, you might find the lining is a bit creased inside. Just keep pressing it, and then basically the same with this side as well, so it's nice and flat. It does take a bit of manhandling. And where these points are here and here, just put the iron over it just for a short time and press it down so it flattens it a bit. We're not going to close up the lining part, because once we put the inside spine, that goes over it. And make sure when you are pressing the lining that it's really all edges are pointing into the center, because when we put this over, we sew over it, which means that we are closing off the lining anyway. So I'm just cutting out a step here without having to close it off. So I'm just going to go to the iron, give it a really good press, and then I'll meet you back here. Okay, so I'll go one step further. I've pressed the lining into the center and given it a really good press, and then I've just folded it in half and given it a good press here. Now we're going to pop this to one side and we're going to work on the elastic part of the pencil case. I'm going to now go on to the lining part. Right, so you've got your main body lining piece, and that's interfaced, and I've got my elastic. Now I've got elastic that I now sell. I'm not plugging it or anything, but you can get this elastic that folds. You can use it folded up if you wanted to. You're going to have to zigzag stitch across, or you can use it like I do, and I use it as the 1/2 inch. It's totally up to you. So, okay, so we need to measure in and then measure for the intervals. The intervals is optional of how you want to divide it up. So I'm making this one for my marker pens. So my previous one was made for my pencils. I'm going to do one for my marker pens, which is for my graphics and when I'm designing bag patterns and stuff. So I'm going to make the intervals one inch intervals, but like so some pencils you only need to do like 3/4 of an inch or even half an inch, so it means that you can store more pencils in. So I'm only going to show you one side and then I will speed up the other side and then show you how to sew it on the sewing machine. Okay, so I'm using a friction pen, which I know disappears. You need to use a marker, a fabric marker that you know is going to disappear with heat or water or air. So from each side you're going to measure in, and the measurements in the actual instructions. Okay. Would help if my pen was actually working. Let's try this one. That's better. Now you probably can't see that because it's grey and it's black. So I'm going to do 1 inch intervals. So starting off here and here, I'm going to measure in 1 1/4 inches. Because obviously we've got the zip going in. I'm just gonna divide this to here. So what's that measuring at? So that's 1 2 3 4 5 6 7.5. Right, okay, so I'm going to just go for 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 7. Yeah, I'm going to do 7/8 marks. So I know my elastic will go around it. Go around the chunky markers, so it's quite stretchy elastic. There you go. Right, okay, so I've done that. I'm just going to repeat the same on this side. So I've done that, and as you can see there's some faint lines there. I can personally see it. You'll see it more once I put the elastic down. Okay, so I've kept my elastic the same, the width as I cut it off. Haven't cut it down yet, so I'm just twisting this round and I'm going to work on this side first. Now that drawn line that I've done going across from long end to long end, I'm just going to eyeball this on the centre of that. I'm just going to pin this part here first, and then every mark that I've made going along I'm going to run pins on. So I use these long pins, which help me a lot. Okay, so I've gone ahead and done that, as you can see there. So each pin is where my stitch line is going to be. So first of all I'm going to sew here to over a few times within the seam allowance. And then I'm going to move over to this pin here. So I'll move this pin just before I put my foot down and my needle down, and I will sew over, and now I'll reverse my stitch at the start and at the end. Now I will do that along all of these here. As you can see, I've sewn that on, and as you just saw in the video footage of the sewing machine, you saw me test to make sure they had enough elastic, and I put this into the hole just like so. Now I'm going to do this next bit off camera and I'll be back. Okay, so I've gone ahead and done both of those. So the next thing is practically the same as the larger case. You're going to pop some glue on that, then pop this right side facing up and the wrong side facing the foam. Press that into place completely and stick it into place. Then you're going to sew either side of the center seam, and then I'll meet you back. Okay, so I've gone ahead and stitched down the two centers. I've stuck the lining on, given it a good, sorry, that was a really loud lorry, giving it a really good press. I went one step further, sewn all the way around, and then I added my logo tags that I normally generally put on my bags. Right, so this center here, I'm just going to get a pin, and where that seam is, I know is my center, so I'm just going to pop a pin in, top and bottom. Okay. Now we creased these double pocket. So the reason why we fold it in half and give it a good press is if you've used one complete piece, you will not know where the center is. However, because I've joined two pieces together, I know where the center is. So I'm eyeballing it in the center here. So I'm making sure my center for here matches up with those centers. Now I'm just going to get a measuring tool and see if those are equal distance. So that's 1 3/4. That's 1 1/2. So just a fraction this way. Yep. I'm gonna just pop a pin. It's not gone all the way through, I know that for sure. Okay, so I'm just going to sew right down that center. Reverse my stitch at the start and at the end. Okay, so I've removed the two pins that were holding this down. Just going to snip off any loose pieces of thread. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is keep those two pins in. I'm going to grab one of the spines, and I'm personally going to work from the outside, so I'm going to flip this over first, stick the spine on, and basically we're repeating the same process as the large one. So you're going to go to your sewing machine, flip this over, make sure this is lying flat, and you're going to stitch 1/8 of an inch away from the edge on both sides. I'm going to use a stitch length number 4, and I'm going to take it really slowly. And the theory is it will catch this side as well. So I'm going to trim back these now. Now, using the same measurements you did before on the larger case, you're going to measure in and then curve off the edges, and then you're going to get the long zip, pop the zip tab on the end, and then you're going to pop the zip going on like you did on the large case. I'm not going to do that and repeat all that again because it's the same process. It's all mentioned at the start of the pattern, so it's the start of both cases in this case. So it means that I'm not repeating myself and not willing to repeat myself again in a super long video. So yeah, so just repeat that. So I'm going to pop this to one side and then I'm going to go into making the binding. Okay, so I've cut my strips. So I'm going to now show you how you sew them together. So you get 2 strips. I haven't pressed these yet. I'm not going to press them until a bit later. So you get 1 strip right side facing up, then you get your 2nd strip right side facing down. And I personally like to overlap both sides, and then you just sew across from this corner to this corner. And what happens is, I prepared one earlier. What happens is when you sew it from corner to corner, you open it out and it's one continuous strip. And it's actually got that stretch which we need to go around those corners on the 4 corners. So I've gone ahead and sewn all my strips together. I don't need these. Like I say, I always overcut. However, I do make scrappy binding for quilts and stuff like that, so it never goes to waste. And I know I've done more than what I need here anyway. So I'm going to go to my iron, press open all of these pieces, all these seams, and then once I've pressed them open, I'm going to fold it in half and give it a press, and I'm going to go down the whole strip. And then I'm going to open it up and press the 2 long pieces into the centre. Then I'm going to meet you back at the cutting table to explain the rest. Right, so I've gone ahead and done my binding. I've pressed the 2 long sides into the centre. I've also started off the next process, so I folded it in by 1/2 inch and then refolded it and gave it a good press. So the next thing you need to do is obviously put your zipper foot back onto your sewing machine and open up the case fully. I personally mention that you need to tuck this part in so it goes at an angle, and what I tend to do is just pull up the zip a bit and then just drop a pin in. My zip pulls quite big, so I'm just going to move that out of the way and pop a pin in. Okay, that just stops it from flapping around. So you're going to need a lot of wonder clips for this. Now I'm going to start off at the bottom here, and I'm going to go around this way. So I'm going to go around this way. So the folded bit I put into the middle of the bottom of the spine and I clip into place like so. Okay, I'm just going to twist it around now. Okay, so make sure the zip is lying flat, and you're just going to basically go around, clip in the binding into place. When you come to a corner, it will be a bit of a struggle, but you will get there. So you're going to just mould it down with your fingers, the zip, slightly pull on the binding so it starts going around that corner. I use quite a few clips on the corners. making sure that zip is still lying flat. Okay, and go in there a bit. Okay, now you're just going to carry on clipping. Right, so I'm going to speed up the footage, but you're going to see the full clip around. Right, so I've come to here. You're gonna just basically just go over it, make sure this is folded at the 45-degree angle that it is. Hold that flat. Postman. Ding dong. And then you're just gonna keep clipping over that. I'm just gonna press pause. Okay. Sorry about that, the postman came. Right, so I'm just going to carry on going around the rest of it here. So I've come to where the folded part is at the start of the actual binding. So I literally pull this over. I always pop a clip round about there. Take this clip off and make sure that it's still folded underneath. And I overlap a bit, so I go approximately 2 inches in. Then I trim off the last bit of the binding, which will make the binding for the small case plus extra in my case. Okay, so you're going to go to your sewing machine with your zipper foot on, using a 2.4 stitch length. I like to start sewing round about here, which is just off where that fold is at the underneath, and I'm sewing all the way along on that ditch, that first crease. I use a tailor's awl when I go around the corner to hold this down. And if you do have an extension table on your sewing machine or something, use it. I haven't been using it because I can't fit it onto my table that I work on. However, if you do have one, you will find it a lot easier. And then basically make sure you reverse your stitches at the start and at the end, and then remove the clips as you go along. And I will then show you the next step. So that's well annoying. The camera ran out of space when I got to this bit here. So basically I just carried on sewing and went over, slightly over where I started off and reversed. That's the only bit that you were missing on that video footage. Obviously I didn't realise the camera had run out of space. Right, so the first thing I'm going to do is flip this over. Yes, it could be creased, just ignore the creases at the moment, hence why my advice is to make it out of quilter's cotton, because it can get creased. Right, so we're going to pull the binding over, let's say, on the corners. Okay. And then it doesn't matter where you really start off, you're going to fold that binding back over and then bring that over. So you're going to need a lot of wonder clips again. You're just going to go all the way around adding clips. And then if you slowly pull on this and then just push this down, the actual body bit, to go around the corner better, so it's not ripply, because some people complain that their binding gets like loads of ripples in it. So I find that pushing down on the body on this particular case and on the small case, if you push down the body, slightly pull the binding and then just bringing it down, it will naturally go around. No, I'm just a bit off there, that's it. Make sure it's tucked under properly where the crease is. Okay. Now I have got a tuck there, so I'm just going to really get my finger inside to make sure it's neater. So, okay, and you're just going to go around popping the clips on. Okay, so this bit here, now I cheat a bit to take away a bit of the bulk, as I literally just cut it off. So I've gone at an angle here. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, you can see that. It's going to help with bulk. So I pull that over first and clip. So that's the bottom, the one that's hidden in between. Then I get the folded one, obviously refold that and pull that to match that one there. Then I always just move the clip so it's over the join. It's not folded properly, just do that again. Okay, and then just carry on going around. Okay, so I've clipped all the way around. Now it's up to you on this step. I personally don't like the one way. So we need to sew down this part of the binding. I personally tried it with my sewing machine, and when I was sewing, because I had to sew from this side, I couldn't see what was happening with my zip, and my zip kept getting caught and I was unpicking it and I just didn't like it whatsoever. So it's personal choice. If you want to try machine sewing it, try machine sewing it. However, I'm going to hand sew it, and I'm going to show you just the basic steps of how to hand sew it, and then you will repeat the whole same process for the the actual pencil case. Okay, so I've got my needle threaded. You can just see it on the camera. There you go. I've got it going through singly, and I'm just going to tie a small knot off. Yes, I do the knots the old way. It's how I was taught when I was a youngster. I know you can do knots totally different these days, but I'm still an old-fashioned girl when it comes to hand sewing. Alright, okay. So I always start off where the join is. So is that where my join is, or is that where my join is? It's not that one. It's this one. Right, so where that join is, I always peel back and just do a few stitches to stitch on and knot it off. Right, I'm just going to stick. The whole point of foam is that you can stick your needle in it. So I'm going to reposition back the binding now. So I've got my thread going up, so it's hidden. I'm going to pop the join back into place. Okay, so I like to sew this way around. Don't know why, it just felt comfortable when I was doing it before. Okay, so you're going to pick up a little bit of the outer fabric first, okay? Then you're going to go in to where that crease, that fold is of the binding, and you're going to go marginal. Now I work on millimeters, so I'm doing around about 3 to 5 millimeters each stitch length. So I've gone in through the binding. I'm now going to catch the outer fabric of the case, and I'm not going all the way through to the line inside. I'm just going into the foam and no further out. I've gone around about 5 millimeters, which is 1/4 of an inch, and then I've come out. Then I'm going to go into the binding folded part and move that clip over slightly, put my finger there. So I've just gone through the binding, so I need to go through that webbing and back into the binding, and I've gone 5 millimeters into the binding. Now I'm going through the webbing, it's the whole point of me using cotton webbing, is because I knew I was hand stitching. Right, so this is where the join is. I'm coming out where the join, the folded part is of the join. I'm gonna go back upon myself one time. There. I'm going to pull that bit, bring that bottom part of the binding up, and go into it a little bit, like so. And then just carry on going. Now I like to put a movie on or something, sit in front of the TV and do this at night. So that's what I'll be doing tonight, is doing both of the cases. So, and you really are just hiding those stitches. You cannot see where I'm going. Now move your clips as you go along. It's a bit dramatic, it just slid off. Now your binding should be going over that sewn line, that stitch line. Don't let your needle go past it, because when you actually pick up the binding on that next stitch, you pull it up this way towards the top of the case and it brings it back over that stitch line. And again, oh, that's a bit too much. There you go, and the binding is naturally going over that stitch line when I pull it up slightly. And do a few more. So, and it should be perfectly neat like that. Yeah, I've got a bit of loose thread there, I can trim that off, stick that into there. But it should be so neat like that. Right, so once you've stitched all the way around or machine sewed it, go ahead and zip it up and then give it a good press on the outside, because there might be some creases from where we had to manhandle it a bit when we were sewing the binding on. So I'll just show you the finished bit. Blue Peter style, I have 2 finished ones here. Right, so these are with Tula Pink's line work fabric and a bit of Tula Pink all-star fabric, but I love these. These are my go-tos. I've got nothing in them at the moment, so I'm going to show you. So obviously green webbing to go with the green, and open that up. Okay, and it's just perfect. I must admit, I have been putting my iPad in this side. I've been putting the iPad cable and the pen that I use, because it takes a specific drawing pen. I have my design book in here normally, my calculator, because with bag making you do need to have a calculator for working out dimensions and stuff. And then I've obviously divided that up into pockets for my pens. But yeah, it's ideal. I've made 6 or 7 this year already. For family members, and some of them have had an embroidery on the front, so which, yeah, I loved doing that one. Easy to close. Now I like tucking mine in, but one of my testers said they don't mind it hanging out. Even one of my testers went a bit further, knowing full well it was hanging out. She put a cam snap in the bottom of the tab, and she installed a cam snap into this part, and she basically just clicks it into place when she's traveling around, so it goes like that. Now I think that's a genius idea, and credit to her. But yeah, that's where the hand sewn binding is. I did the very first one I ever made, I did machine sew it and hated it. I was unpicking it a lot because of the zip. The zip is giving you quite a wide berth. However, I stuff a lot into this. Yes, it does bulge out a bit, quite a bit, but I'm not bothered. Now, one tester did put a handle on her smaller case, and she has not made it into a pencil case. So a bit like the crochet hook one, she did a small slip pocket here, and she keeps just a travel little booklet for colouring booklet, and then she did do pencil holder on this side, and for her little one in the back of the car for car journeys. So it's swing roundabouts. This pattern is for you to have a play around. Thanks ever so much for watching, and if you are new to my channel, thanks for joining me. If you're new to the Facebook group, hi! Yeah, so please click the subscribe button and the notification bell for when the next videos are up. I do videos which have got free content in, plus sew-alongs for general patterns that I release through the year, which you can buy. So this pattern can be found in the Facebook group, which is in the link down below. And once again, thanks ever so much for joining me, and I hope you have a lovely sewing day. Bye!